to give my salutations to the People's President in absentia, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, the leader of the Democratic Alternative. I also want to give my respect to the Vice President of the Democratic Movement, Madam Lynette Karenyi-Kore, Honorable, and the international organizer of the Alternative, Amos Shibaya, Honorable, the leadership of America from the main wing to Youth Assembly and the Women's Assembly. I greet you all, comrades. I'm not so sure of the time frame that I'm given to make a very short presentation on the role of young people and to answer later the questions that might be intended for me in particular as the Secretary General of the Youth Assembly to respond on. I'm going to make a very short presentation, fellow comrades, on
Leader, you are muted. Thank you. Go ahead. No.
Can you hear me?
Very well. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My short presentation is on the role of young people in advancing the agenda of the National Democratic Revolution. Fellow comrades, we gather in very difficult moments in the history of our country. Zimbabwe is at crossroads. We face a multiple currents from the social economic challenges in Zimbabwe. The young people are at the receiving end of the assault of the democratic movement by the regime in Harare. The journey of democratization has never been this difficult. The journey of democratizing our motherland has been very tough. But those that have been in this journey since 1999, those that participated in the liberation struggle, understand that fighting a dictatorship is but a very difficult task. It requires one to surrender themselves before they surrender the national project. We are, as a generation, as Franz Fanon put it aptly very clear, that each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. The major question we are faced with today is, what is it that must be done? What is the role of young people? What is the role of our generation in advancing the cause to democratize our motherland? As I was saying about the background of the socio-economic political environment in Zimbabwe, there is a deliberate assault to the democratic alternative. The MDC Alliance, under the capable leadership of Advocate Nelson Chamisa, has received blows from the regime in Harare. At first, it was the military moving on to take over our headquarters known as Harvest House. Before the end of it, it was the court pronouncing that an outfit which contested independently of the alliance is now part and parcel of the alliance, and in fact, it is the alliance itself. Before we knew it, it was our members of parliament being unconstitutionally and illegally removed from parliament. Before we knew it, there was chaos and havoc in local authorities. I think it was in the full glare of citizens blows, wherein the money that was supposed to be given to our political party was taken and given to another outfit, which is an extension of Zanupf. Our Eastward compatriots and comrades have decided to join the gravy train
We lost him. Yeah, I think we can play some music while he tries to come back. And I'm seeing there's a lot of sharing there. I wonder if it's also interfering with that.
I'm sure we've lost.
He's back.
He's
back on. Yes, he's back.
Can you confirm?
You can go
hear me
ahead.
now?
We can hear you, leader. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Our generation that took over from Ostallos Siziba faces the fundamental question that with the assault on the democratic alternative, what is the role of young people? Our comrades in America must also understand what is the character and driving force of those that are defecting away from the alternative to join Zanupf, because that is an important question that is at the center of my presentation. There is, because of existence in the struggle for a longer period, there is a high possibility that compatriots and comrades without an ideological compass can develop fatigue. There is a possibility that comrades without a clear vision on where we are going can pursue personal financial interest when they don't see the glare of hope about the vision to change our society. There is in the journey to democratize a possibility that comrades can develop not only just fatigue, but a creeping sense of entitlement, in the process jeopardizing their commitment to the cause to change society. There is, fellow compatriots, a possibility that in advancing this struggle for a longer period of time, that is the character and nature of any struggle against dictatorship, that comrades will develop a culture of impunity. The MDC has not been spared from this contradiction. Like any movement across the world that is fighting to change the status quo of society, it is bound to have its own contradictions. But we as young people are given the political and moral responsibility to redefine the struggle to transform the concrete realities of our people. We live in very difficult moments wherein our compatriots, those that we felt are key in the struggle, are joining Zanupf. They are joining Zanupf does not mean any significant crumble or any path that the democratic alternative is losing its course. We are living in the era of cynicism. We are living in the era of doubt. We are living in the era where a struggle has its own Morrison yard. There is no struggle without bruises. For us in the motherland, we face bruises and assault from the regime day in, day out. As I'm addressing you right now, our national executive member for labor and social welfare, Makombora Ruzivishe, is in prison. As I'm speaking with you, Zimbabwe National Students Union, a key founder and a member, a participant of the National People's Convention in 1999, the president therein, in the shoes of Lenmo Juta Chongweta Kudzwangadziore, is in prison. The young people are at the assault and center of receiving blows from the regime. But we are in a tipping point to redefine and define our struggle, to redefine how we deal with authoritarian regime in Harare. We take this opportunity, fellow compatriots, to pronounce in no uncertain terms that the Youth Assembly has made it very clear that enough is enough. We cannot continue receiving blows from the regime without clearly providing the necessary leadership to take our struggle forward. Our national chairperson, Madam Tabita Kumalo, was assaulted by assailants that we are still investigating. There is a clear, deliberate, state-funded agenda to destroy the alternative. Emerson Mnangagwa is leading an agenda that if we can't capture the opposition movement, we must lead it ourselves. The philosophical belief by the regime in Harare has been seen every day in the streets of Salisbury and across our country. That our failure as the alternative to accept that we defeated Emerson Mnangagwa and we accept his leadership is the one that we are being punished for. Advocate Nelson Chamisa's sole crime is representing the masses and dejected people of Zimbabwe. But I want to give you assurance that of all the assault to the democratic movement, This has not destroyed the fact that the movement controls the social contract which has kept the party together. The social base of the democratic alternative remains intact. The opposition movement in Zimbabwe, as led by African Nation Chamisa, remains prepared to lead the agenda to change the realities of the suffering people for Zimbabwe. Two questions that I'm going to answer so that I end my presentation at this juncture. Number one, what is the role of young people? Number two is the fundamental question of what should be done. Fellow comrades, we are meeting at a critical juncture where we have to redefine the social forces in Zimbabwe. There is need for young people across the socio-political divide to converge and agree on the four and most important questions to take our struggle forward. The first important question for our generation is to agree as young people that are between the ages of 18 and 35, what is the central strategic objective of our struggle. We seek to answer this important question because it builds a consensus within the generality of our people. What is the objective? There must be consensus across the teapot-shaped country on what constitutes the objective of our struggle. Number two, we seek to answer the question, what is our revolutionary theory? This is an important question because it answers the question of our ideological persuasion as a party. Zanupf under Mthuli Ncube is pursuing clear neoliberal policies that have affected the working class in this country. The few people that are still eking out of a living through providing their labor to the state and the private sector are suffering because of the central bank's neoliberal policies. We suffer because of policy contradictions within ZANU-PF. The MDC itself has not inspired from leaders who suffer from ideological kwashiorkor. The Youth Assembly must begin to converge and understand and articulate clearly the agenda of a social democratic alternative. The shift by the old people to join cause with ZANU-PF is a clear sign of lack of ideological compass. We invest as the Youth Assembly in the Morgan Richard Tsvangirai School of Ideology. May Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai's soul rest in peace. It is important at this juncture to ensure that our cadres receive thorough ideological training. For a soldier without ideological training and orientation is a potential criminal. These have been reviewed by the recent exodus of cadres without ideological compass. Number three, we seek to answer as the democratic alternative in the Youth Assembly, what is our method of struggle? There must be a consensus within the generality of young people on what is the method of struggle. Given the assault in the democratic alternative, we must, like the liberation fighters who made the resolution that we cannot continue to fight Ian Douglas Smith through the conventional method that was being applied by the liberation forces. There was a consensus during the liberation struggle that we must be able to confront the regime of Ian Smith by any means necessary or unnecessary. We are faced with this very difficult question as a generation to articulate and understand and agree on what constitutes the method of struggle. Should we continue to confront a trigger-happy armed regime of Emerson Mnangagwa with the particular pathway that we are taking? Our comrades are being vilified, our comrades are being arrested. Our female compatriots, the Vice Chairperson Cecilia Chimbiri, Secretary for Police Joanna Mamombe, and our Deputy Organizing Secretary Netai Maroba are in incarceration. These fellow young people were abducted and tortured by the regime, but they continue to be harassed and haunted by the regime in Harare. Emerson Mnangagwa is not forgiving. Emerson Mnangagwa is very brutal as much as he is callous. And our generation must sit down and define the method of struggle to take the democratic movement forward. So we seek fellow compatriots as young people to answer these fundamental questions. Once we have answered these, we are going to do the following. Number one, to be able to organize society and resist dictatorship. There is no struggle without pain. We address our compatriots in America and the world at large. that as young people we are prepared to surrender ourselves before we surrender this project. We were given the responsibility by compatriots in 2019 to lead the struggle and take the necessary risk to liberate our society. There are no liberators. Liberators do not exist. The people who liberate themselves. It's high time we take our struggle to the grassroots and make sure we mobilize society to resist dictatorship. You know that elections in this country have been made a very futile exercise. The regime in Harare has made it very difficult for ordinary people to believe on the power of elections as a tool of transition. So we interrogate as young people these fundamental questions so as to provide the necessary leadership to liberate our country. There is no struggle without people selling out. There is no struggle without pain. There is no struggle without cost. Every struggle has its own bruises, blows, and contradictions. And the democratic movement in the Youth Assembly is very clear that such is the journey of change. Such is the painful cost of dedicating our lives to liberate our country. The intention of the democratic movement is to ensure that we change the concrete realities of our people. Going forward, we also make sure that young people are at the center of policy articulating, fellow compatriots. It is important that the Youth Assembly leads the agenda of policy articulation and provide the necessary thought leadership of a democratic alternative that is clear to transform the lives of our people. We have defeated Zanupf. We will continue defeating Zanupf at the levels of ideas. We must be able to ensure that the Youth Assembly is a hub of generating ideas to transform our realities. We must be able to show that we have built a credible alternative. We must ensure that we avoid being co-opted by the regime in Harare. For there is a deliberate agenda to ensure that our leaders are co-opted to join the grave train of the regime in Harare. Therefore, as young people, as the vanguard, we must ensure that we defend, safeguard, and ensure that our leadership, the institution,
What happened?
No.
He's muted.
was unmuting a sign that my time is up.
No, round up. I think I think it was a technical mistake. It wasn't deliberate.
Thank you very much. As I conclude, my presentation, as I've said, was anchored on the role of young people, the Youth Assembly in advancing the nature and struggle to democratize our society. We are prepared as a generation, and we know that today we might be speaking on a Facebook Live addressing you, fellow compatriots in America, but tomorrow we might be behind bars. But this is the cause that we've dedicated ourselves for. We've made it very clear to our compatriots, to those that support us, to those that believe in us, that the Youth Assembly is prepared to take the agenda for change to another level. We are going to enter a very difficult phase in our struggle as we call for freedom of our compatriots, as we call for the total liberation of our country. We gear up for this difficult but important journey to change our society, all for the betterment of our people to shape the country and the future of our children. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leader Ostallos. Leader Ostallos, he is the Secretary General of the MDC Alliance Youth Assembly. I'm going to pass over to Pearl Matibe, who is going to field one question to our leader.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I have a question for you, and this question, Mr. Siziba, it's coming from Dallas, Texas. And Dallas, Texas is asking, what does the deflection of leaders mean to the party's internal security strategy Are there plans by the party to conduct internal cleansing to weed out deflection? And what strategies does the party have to rejuvenate morale in the structures given its splits, defections, and persistent attacks on leaders? If you can try to respond to this question in 3 minutes, then that'll be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As I said during my presentation, that there is no struggle with its own Morrison yard. The MDC Alliance has, like at any historic juncture, been able to reflect and reconsider our security strategies to ensure, and I think that you will agree with me, that it won't be strategic to address and answer the how part of how we have strengthened our security department and security protocols to ensure that we deal with possibilities of people selling out in the democratic alternative. But we have, like any mass organization, been budgeted that our compatriots, because of the reason that I've mentioned, can decide to join with Zanupf. Allow me to say it in no uncertain terms, that the shifting of an individual from the alternative does not in any way shake the democratic alternative. The party's highest decision-making body in between a Congress, which is the National Council, is clear on the task ahead, the responsibility, and is moving swiftly. The National Executive of the party has met and is very clear. The National Standing Committee of the party, like the Youth Assembly management and that of the Women's Assembly, are clearly intact and driving the party forward. You know that the state used COVID-19 to assault the democratic alternative. Weaponization of the pandemic was at the center to destroy the alternative. We are aware and conscious of the realities, and we have sat down to reorganize and advance the agenda to change society in these difficult circumstances. So I can give assurance that we are coming back to build our party from below, and I know that is the agenda to be addressed by our international organizer, Honorable Amos Chibai. How we are rejuvenating the party and building a mass movement. You know that the Youth Assembly is recruiting 1 million young people to be agents of transformation in this country. These are going to be 1 million voices of change. These are going to be at the center of advancing the agenda of the national democratic revolution. So fellow compatriots, fellow Zimbabweans, Africans, and the world at large, be rest assured that the democratic movement is intact under the capable leadership of Advocate Nelson Chamisa, aka Wamba Diawamba, who is going to address our country in the next 72 hours. So keep your eyes and ears for the people's president to assure you that the party is truly intact, the party is truly ready to lead, the party is truly ready to prove that it is a genuine alternative to change the concrete realities of the suffering masses of our people. So stand still, be firm, comrades. This is the nature of our struggle. Let us be rejuvenated, have our political morale, and advance our struggle forward. Very soon we shall be back in the streets of all the provinces of our country to speak, and the people are always the champion of this project. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I will field more questions to you later. Now over to Mr. Jams for some music.
Atina temugira simuna mu Zimbabwe nazindozidura ndimbotaura zvirewe unadzimanyika unogona kupiteseza hurumende yako enda zvisungisa mborowe asi kwete kuno kupikise tori treason ukangova criticize hanzi subversion vanobva vatovhura netuma subsection paragraph 100 threat to the nation yachema Zimbabwe mjara Constantino aiwa tiskuramba zvadi kuti muri mabosi hatuna kumboramba kuti ichi chinhu chenyu pati upenyu hwedu msatidaro kanino inofamba seko business yangu pasina magen kanyikaga aiwa bodo kanganaka seka breakfast ikasina ka bread kanyikaga aiwa bodo mwanangu ndewane tufizi ini ndisina yerent kanyikaga aiwa bodo zvara chimbomira yoyo zveroora katikati kanyikaga aiwa bodo